Welcome to Conversations with KidCareCanada. I'm your host, Estelle Paget, and with us in the studio today is Diana Elliott. She's the Provincial Advisor for Aboriginal Infant Development Programs, BC, and I know you're going to be thrilled to see what Diana does, who she is, and learn a little bit more about Indigenous culture today. Diana, thank you so much for coming.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation, and I'm happy to be here today on Indigenous Peoples Day to discuss AIDP and all of the Indigenous children and families we work with. Thank you.
You know, I felt that the stars were aligned when it turned out we were going to have you on a show, but it is really a special day. And we're going to learn a little bit more about Indigenous peoples and especially about you. I was wondering if you could just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Well, I am Coast Salish from Cowichan Tribes here in Duncan, BC. And I'm also Nuu Chah Nulth from the Hoopachesset First Nation in Port Alberni through my mother. And I'm also, I have also been the Provincial Advisor for Aboriginal Infant Development Programs for 15 years. But personally, to get the bragging out of the way, I live on the Cowichan village in Cowichan with my husband of 35 years. And I have 2 adult children and a beautiful grandson named Corbin, a new beautiful granddaughter named Hannah, and a second granddaughter on the way in the summer. I'm neighbors with my mom and dad. They live right next door to me, so I'm happy that I have my parents and they're also my neighbors.
You and I are both so lucky to be grandparents.
Yes.
So I think, full disclosure, I know you, and I know you fairly well, but other people don't, and so I'm just going to do a little bit of bragging.
Right.
Recently, you were given an amazing award, which is the Dr. Hillel Goldman Award.
Yes.
And I'm just going to check because I want to make sure I get this right.
Sure.
It is for outstanding leadership in professional development in early childhood intervention. And I know that that is very well earned.
Yes, thank you, and it's an honor. I've known Dr. Hillel Goldman since I started my role as Provincial Advisor, and it was such an honor to receive it from him in person at the Early Years Conference this January, for sure.
And I believe you've won some other awards.
Yes, in 2011, AIDP Programs won an award from the Child and Youth Advocate, and it was for culture and language and work for Indigenous children and families from an Indigenous cultural perspective, and honoring our culture and in some ways revitalizing our culture and respecting our culture and our families that we work with.
I would say that one's well deserved too.
Yes, very proud of that because it's for all AIDP programs.
Now, I think we should talk a little bit about your approach.
Mm-hmm.
What would you like people to know?
First of all, our approach is all rooted in our culture, and not just Coast Salish culture, not just Nuu Chah Nulth culture, but it could be Carrier, it could be Tanaha, it could be wherever our programs are located. And we really honor the leadership of the nations where we have programs. We totally respect the elders that we learn from around traditional parenting, around being a mother, about being a father, about being a family. And we also have urban programs that are located throughout the province. And those programs work extra hard to ensure that they provide a culturally safe place for the families who aren't living on the lands of their people because of education, because of work, because of housing. We really make sure that our urban families are also supported from a very culturally safe place. And we have some located in friendship centers across the province and other child development centers and Métis nations. So we really try to support families wherever they live.
So the beginning of our show shows a little video and it says, you don't have to be a parent, you don't have to be an aunt or uncle.
Right.
Babies are everybody's business.
Yes, and that is one of the bases of our AIDP programs. that everyone is responsible for every child. Whether you're a birth relative or not, whether you're a woman, you're sometimes identified just as auntie. If you're a male, you might be identified as grandpa or uncle, and you may not even be related to that child, but it's that sense of family and that sense of belonging and that sense of having someone to look up to and someone to feel safe with. I spent many years as a frontline worker in AIDP, and as some may know, Diana isn't an easy name to say when you're a toddler.
Yeah.
But most of the time I was called Auntie because I just filled that role. So we do become extended families to the families that we support. So now that I'm a grandma, if one of them called me grandma, I'd be totally okay with that. But I hired my dad for years as a van driver because we supplied transportation. And he would come back sometimes and say, he called me grandpa, and I don't even know who he is. But my dad was learning that that's what he was to them. Not just the bus driver, but grandpa. So many, many kids called him grandpa over the years as he was our bus driver. So yes, you don't have to be related. And that old saying, it takes a community, it takes a village to raise a child, that really is a concept that we've lived for many generations, for sure.
And you have a visual, and it's a circle.
Yes. I'll just read it.
Okay.
Because I don't want to leave anything out. This is a quote from a Shuswap elder that I received in 2004, and it was the foundation of the beginning of our AIDP practice philosophy. So I'll just read it for you. Because our people had that strong belief, whatever happened, to keep our family circle strong. With the circle, there is no beginning, no ending. Within the family circle, we have the grandparents who are the teachers, the young mums, the young dads, the big brothers, the big sisters, uncles and aunts and cousins. They're all in the outside circle, and every one of them had an obligation to the little ones in the center. Children were never growing up without somebody there all the time. So that is the basis of our AIDP philosophy when we started developing our practice manual, our practice guidelines manual.
And I know something else that guides you. Well, actually, you're somebody who really likes quotes, and you really like reading about what other people have accomplished.
Yes.
But you have a quote about the importance of mothering the mother. Where does that come from?
Years ago, and I can't even guess. There was probably an early years conference where Diane Malbon, who is a very respected, well-known professional in relationship to fetal alcohol spectrum syndrome. I went to one of her workshops, and one of the things she said was, if you mother the mother, you mother the child. And that made a lot of sense to me. Because if you know First Nations, you know that there's been a legacy of residential schools, and you know that for some 10 to 15 years, some of those children weren't mothered. So now they're mothers themselves. And we realized early on in AIDP that it was not just about child development, but mothering the mother or parenting the parents. And being that auntie, that grandma, or that sister, whatever relationship you might, is helping the families understand what parenting is, because it might not come naturally to them, having spent so many years in a residential school, and then learning as they go, but parenting how they were treated, as far as punishment is concerned, is not feeling that nurture, not feeling that hug when you've fallen and hurt your knee. So yes, we really took on her philosophy as well about if you mother the mother, you mother the child. And there's nothing wrong with that. Some people say, well, you might create a dependency, or you're not helping them, or you're doing more work than they are. But that's really not true. It's really empowering them and giving them the confidence they need as they're learning to become parents to their children.
We're going to take a little break, and when we return, you're going to explain some of the very exciting things that you can see here in front of us. We'll see you in a few minutes, and in the meantime, you can learn a little bit more about KidCareCanada Society.
A child's early years are foundational for lifelong mental and physical health. KidCareCanada Society is a charitable organization incorporated in the province of British Columbia. We seek to empower families to raise their children to be socially and emotionally healthy, and ensure families and those who support them have easy access to relevant, current research at no cost to the end user. Our appealing videos, now being captioned in various languages, feature world-renowned experts and real families. To access these videos and other free resources, log on to KidCareCanada.org.
With us in the studio today is Diana Elliott, the Provincial Advisor for Aboriginal Infant Development Programs. And it just happens to be a very special day because it's June 21st, which is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And in a minute, you're going to see some of the interesting things Diana has brought, and she's going to explain how she uses them. Welcome back, Diana.
Thank you. Yes, on the topic of assessing children, Aboriginal Infant Development Programs, we haven't changed our name yet to Indigenous, but we are discussing that. Mm-hmm. And so one of the things that many professionals and First Nations leadership express concern about is the screening and assessment tools that we use. Because they're not Indigenous. They don't reflect our Indigenous way of knowing and being. But over the years, I've discovered ways to indigenize the standardized published assessment tools, and it doesn't change the outcome or anything like that with children. So what I've brought today and put on the table is some of the tools when they want to do activities with children. They would say to ask them to build a train, and they just want to know if they can create a horizontal line with blocks, or ask them to build a tower, wanting them to stack the blocks. And those aren't necessarily words that are in our everyday language. So what I've done is create my own toolkit. And so when I ask a child, instead of asking a child to build a train, I ask him to build a canoe. And I'm really fortunate, and like I said before, my parents are my neighbors. My dad built this little canoe for me, and it is a replica of the war canoes or the canoes that we still use today when we do our journeys. And you get the same outcome, whether you call it a canoe or whether you call it a train. And then we have a totem pole, and so we want them to stack. That just shows that they can vertically stack. And they can relate to a totem pole because they're in our villages in Duncan. They're in the city of Duncan. We have totem poles. And it just really makes more sense to me. So I don't necessarily feel like the tools don't work. We have to make the tools work on behalf of our children. And I also use a drum. We can figure out if they imitate. If you beat the drum, will they beat the drum? Gross motor, fine motor kind of work we can do with it. And if they're a little older, we can talk about shapes. Then the drum is round. But we can also talk about what it's made out of, and they would relate to the deer hide that it is made out of. So there's so many things that we can do when we're working with children and families, and then just having things they can identify with. I have a little doll here. I'm wearing a button blanket and a cedar head basket, so she can identify with that. And also you can point to her eyes and nose just as much as you could point to a little blonde-haired, blue-eyed doll. So it's just really a way that I've always felt comfortable creating space for creating assessment tools that are more meaningful and relatable to the families that we're doing these tools with.
So one of the things I've admired about you for years is that you do know how to make things relevant and meaningful for people. So will you build the canoe for us?
Well, first of all, I want to show it to you.
Yes.
My dad built this a long time ago and painted it, and I just asked him if I could borrow it one day, and I never gave it back. So when I ask the children to build a canoe, you give them the blocks, and you really just want them to make a horizontal line and to see if they can do it. And if they can't do it, then you can show it to them as well.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think very easily they could tell that I'm wanting them to make sort of a horizontal line,
Like the canoe.
like the canoe. And the same thing with the totem pole.
So you've removed the stress and you've turned it into something fun, and we know how important play is for little children.
Yes, and understanding and learning what they know or learning what they need to know. And again, it's all relatable. And I have a cedar headdress there. I could put it on, or I could have the child put it on. I have an eagle feather, and I have numerous other things, but these are the ones that I just brought to highlight today.
We only have a little bit of time left. Would you like to tell us about some of the achievements that you're particularly proud of with AIDP?
Well, I'm very proud of our longevity. A lot of people might not know that originally we were here from 1980 to 1983. We had funding, a three-year funding, and we never found any funding to keep going. So we lost AIDP until 1992 when they started having the tripartite health transfer agreements between the federal, provincial government and the nations. And in 1992, our nation chose to bring AIDP back. They did a feasibility study, a health study, and said what did they want in their community. And the two things that were important to my community was looking after our children and looking after our elders. So we've got wonderful programs that include AIDP and wonderful elders programs, activities and lunches. So I'm proud of our longevity. We're here, we're still here. We're celebrating 26 years. We grew, when I took this role on in 2003, we grew from 25 AIDP to 48, and we've maintained that over time. We average about 1,100 to 1,800 children per year on our caseloads provincially, collectively by all programs. And we do so many things with them, and it's not just child-centered, it's family-centered, it's so culturally relevant that I'm just proud that we've been here all this long. And I'm just proud of all of the 77 or so AIDP professionals that we have across the province that are First Nations, they're Métis, they're non-Aboriginal professionals who work in our programs, but they understand our philosophy. So I'm just really proud of AIDP after all of these years that we're still here.
We're going to take a look at a little video that summarizes some of the comments that you've been making about the importance of social and emotional development.
Okay.
Emotional safety means your child feels loved, nurtured, special, and safe. And as you will see and hear, babies who experience early loving relationships have a better chance for lifelong health and happiness.
The baby's born and it must stay with mother. And it stays with mother on mother's skin. Mother's skin is different to the skin on the rest of her body, and it's designed to be the place where a baby's born. All the mother has to do is just hold her baby and love her baby.
Babies can sense anxiety in their surroundings, so trying to be calm and enjoy them is a very positive way of reinforcing good feelings for them.
We know that adversity can fundamentally change the development of the child's biology, the circuitry in the brain, can change even the immune system, can change the way that the body's metabolism is regulated.
You changed my life.
Make us better. Yes, you make us better.
A lot of the things that your great-grandmother did and your great-great-great-grandmother did are what babies need. They need what you're doing now. They need touch.
I was going to high school, and then I found out I was pregnant. It was really hard to push myself to go back to school because I was just really scared for what everybody would say. I was young, and I was going to be a single mom.
Babies are really at risk from even the most loving parents of having an inappropriate reaction by the parent. And the worst thing, that can happen is the baby gets shaken or something, and you can cause permanent brain damage or even death by a strong shake. And you wouldn't think that a loving parent could possibly do this to a child, but anybody can get exhausted, anybody can get frustrated by too much crying.
It's a tremendous period of joy. I would say don't let your anxiety inhibit the joy or suppress the joy, if you will. Trust your instincts and be as gentle and as present as possible.
You can't spoil a baby with love.
She's my pride and joy. My little world right here.
So Diana, how does that little video relate to the work you do?
It relates very much. If we had more time, I would have loved to have talked about the residential school legacy, the 60s scoop. I would love to talk about where we're at with the Truth and Reconciliation Commission and what that means to the health and well-being of our children and families. But I might just summarize it a little bit and share with you our mission and philosophy statement, just because it fits with the well-being and what we think of our children. So our mission statement is, every child is a unique gift from the Creator. The mission of Aboriginal Infant Development Programs is to honor this gift by supporting the development of Aboriginal children with the context of the family, the community, and culture by offering access to culturally appropriate early intervention and prevention support programs. So that's been our guiding principle since 2005. And our philosophy statement is, community-based, community-driven, culturally specific programs and services will best meet the needs of Aboriginal children. So that is something that guides us, all 48 of our programs, along with the Shuswap elder who gave us the what a family means. But it also talks about family-centered practice. It also talks about values and beliefs in different cultures. And I definitely feel that I'm shaped by my family and my parents' experiences, good and bad. And I feel like I'm shaping my children's lives and now my grandchildren's. And over time, like I said, 26 years, we've learned so many new things in 26 years, but we've always found ways to complement them with our own teachings and our values and beliefs. So some of the things that we talk about a lot is each person is important. So we may have an elder who's an alcoholic, but I also understand that he may have been a residential school survivor, and that's what he does to numb pain, but he's still a valuable person and he still has valuable teachings. And I talk to elders who are in their 90s and ask them, what did your grandfather say to you? So we're connecting generations to generations and hopefully carrying forward as well. We also talk about being related. Everything is related. Every living thing is related. So having respect for nature, having respect for, or wanting to live in harmony with nature. And in this climate now,
yes,
it's difficult. You know, there's so many other things we could talk about related to that, but we really do try to hang on to that connection to nature and all living things. And we just know that we just have to treat each other with respect. And if doing that, that looks after their mental, physical, spiritual, mental, emotional well-being. If we're disrespecting people, that's the opposite of respect is disrespect. And we don't ever want to operate from a place of disrespect. So it's very important for us to have these different values. And we talk about, in many of our programs, it may not be related to one nation, but universally, I think we all understand things like the 7 sacred teachings that we create programs by, or parenting programs, or talk about through traditional parenting. So those are some of the values that we use. And I think it really has helped a lot of parents. And if I could give an example of one of the parents that I worked with, although I haven't been a frontline worker for many years, I was sitting in my office one day and I got a phone call from a woman, and she said, "Is this Diana Elliott?" And I said, "Yes, it is." "Is this Diana Elliott who used to work at Cowichan Tribes in Duncan?" And I said, "Yes, it is." So she told me her name and said, "I don't know if you remember me." And I did. She was a mother of 2 children who was in a very emotionally abusive relationship. So we're not about breaking up families or saying, you know, we don't say leave him and, you know, whatever, but we empower her and we give her the confidence she needs and the self-love. And eventually she separated. And then it came to a point where she realized, I'm a role model for these children. And if I want them to graduate and if I want them to be successful, then I need to do what I want them to do. She went back to school and got a degree in child and youth care with a minor in social work. And she phoned me to let me know she was graduating after 4 hard years of work. And what she said to me stays with me always, because it shows me we are making a difference. And she said, "Diana, I just want you to know you and AIDP have a lot to do with where I am today." So one family, but if you can imagine all of the families that all of our programs are working with, we are making a difference.
What a delightful and positive way to end our discussion. Thank you so much for joining us today, Diana.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. Please follow us on our social media, check out our website, and remember, we're here to support you on your journey as a parent.